Welcome back, Thompson to Clark, Brad and Garrett here. Today, because this is a podcast network about Bay Area sports, I don't even want to bring up this game on the air.
It was
very,
not pretty.
It was very terrible. Maybe one of the worst 49er games I've ever seen in my life, unfortunately. But so Roderick and I, last night, we recorded the post game right after the game was over. And so we missed the news that was coming out of that game, which is Brock Purdy had they worried the UCL in the elbow, which from this podcast, we know that could be bad news, really bad news.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What it sounds like is that they are hoping it is a repair versus a reconstruction. And so I did a kind of an emergency bonus episode in the feed on Brock Purdy's elbow. So if people are interested in that, make sure you check that out. We also have the full video on the YouTube channel. It was just me, solo me for 10 minutes. I don't know if that's good or bad, but but yeah,
that's good. I mean, if you're bringing better than expected information, it's good.
Yeah, right? The breaking news stuff worked really well when we broke the news of Brandon Belt signing with Toronto. That's like the most highly viewed video on the YouTube page. So that was kind of interesting. Yeah. You know what I realized, though, as I was doing my UCL research, I've definitely sprained my UCL before. And when I did it, I know exactly when I did it. So 2001, post 9/11, I was playing in a tournament, a semi-pro tournament in Arizona, where we got to play on all the minor league fields. And I clearly remember this because it was like a month after 9/11. So the airports were just a mess, as you can imagine. And so we went out to that tournament, and in that tournament, you're playing multiple games in a row. I think we played something like, it was like 4 games in 5 days, or 5 games in 4 days, or something like that. So by the end of this tournament, my elbow was so sore that I had to come. I was like, guys, there's no way I can play shortstop. I can't even think about making that throw across the diamond. My elbow's so messed up. They're like, okay, just play second, play second base. I'm like, okay, playing second base. I go and try and turn a double play, and I catch the ball at the bag and I pivot. And to me, this ball is going towards first base.
Right.
But my arm said, no, it's going to be about between first base and catcher. I had zero control of where the ball was going.
Yeah.
And so I'm reading up about this injury, and grip strength, and you can't really feel, you can't feel the ball. And so I'm like, oh, that's what I hurt during that tournament. And it took me, several months to be able to throw again. So that obviously mine wasn't a tear. It was, I'm assuming it was a sprain, but right. We usually see this as a baseball injury. And when you hear that, you think Tommy John surgery. But in doing the research, it's like if it's a repair, it's probably a 6-month injury. If they reconstruct the thing, for baseball players, it's over a year, or for pitchers, it's over a year. But for someone like Brock Purdy, it was probably more like 9 or 10 months. But still, you don't, that's almost missing the season. So hopefully for him that it is a repair and he could be back by the start of training camp. But just wanted to mention that because I put that up as sort of a breaking news. We haven't usually done that too much in this feed, but I thought it was like, might as well put it up. Rod and I weren't able to talk about it last night, so I just wanted to update the listeners.
I'm just kind of shocked that doesn't happen more in football, mainly because, again, you're still throwing overhand, I don't know, 35 to 40 times a game. And the warm-ups beforehand. But the fact that you've got, a defensive lineman or linebacker coming wanting to rip your head off, and if all he can grab is your throwing arm as it's exposed like this, I'm really shocked there's not more of those injuries because, we always talk about it. My brother-in-law and I, when we're watching games, Stafford's dropping back, Jared Goff, Kurt Warner, all these years that we've been watching. And when a guy comes and defensive player gets his hand right next to the arm, we're like, oh man, dodged a bullet. But it's one of those kind of, I almost call it a freak injury because you just don't see it that often.
Yeah, and plus, Stafford's 6'5", 230 or whatever, and
Yeah.
6 foot 195. So
Exactly. So he's a little
hit.
bit lower in the trajectory of everybody's big fat defensive lineman arms.
I thought the same thing as you, though, and I have a hypothesis about why this doesn't happen to quarterbacks as much, is because the quarterback throwing motion is more like a catcher's throwing motion, and so there's not as much reach back as someone like DeGrom, throwing 103, where he's reaching back and he's coming down. And he's probably throwing a little bit harder than he should, and that's where those injuries come from. But it's crazy. But this is where the network works, right? We have baseball knowledge to these football injuries, and we can give the baseball perspective as well. So that was good. All right, what are we going to talk about today? Well, just kind of everything. There's like lots of little nuggets of news, no giant news, but little nuggets enough to keep us going for the hour or however long it takes here. One of the things that made me laugh is someone had tweeted that Draymond Green starts a podcast, the Warriors win the championship. The Kelsey brothers start a podcast, and now they're facing off against each other in the Super Bowl. Hot Take Bry tweeted at Logan Webb and was like, "It's your turn, buddy."
That's fantastic.
Let's go.
I like that. Did Webb say anything back? Did he say?
I don't know. I'm watching it closely.
It's in the pike. It's ready to go. We've got it.
Because if he replies, I'm going to be out there going like, I'll produce you. You just have to talk in the mic. I got you. We'll record it. We'll put it out. We got everything here for Logan Webb just to come and say a few words for once a week or something. So
you've even got the lid of the team that he's going to be pitching for in about a month. How do you like that? That's a nice looking lid.
My World Baseball Classic hat, Team USA. There were a few different ones. They had the fitted. They had the stretch fit. I like the snapback a little better for podcasts because sometimes with that stretch fit, the bill curves a little bit too much. And then with the real fitted hat, I'm always right between a size and it never fits great. So I've never been a snapback guy my entire life, but just these last couple of years, I'm like, you know what? Let's just go snapback.
I've become a snapback guy over the last few years. This is a fitted hat, and it just happens to fit any hair that I got going on underneath here. But there are times during the summer I got the short crop so I can snap it down more. And then there's times like this where I've got just the mop. Right? And I have to like really open it up so I can get the hat on my head. So that's I've pretty much gone like snapbacks now at this age.
All right, what else is going on? Well, the Giants and KMBR are hosting the Fanfest this weekend, which means that pitchers and catchers are right around the corner. What is that date? Like, do we have a countdown of when pitchers and catchers report?
Garrett, I've got it on my calendar.
All right, let's go.
Let me go look here. And it's coming up really soon. I think it's right after the Super Bowl. Giants pitchers and catchers report on the 16th.
Wow. That is
actually, I apologize. They report on the 15th of February, and then their first full workout is the 16th.
Okay.
So
there
you go.
Wow. That is soon. So we'll have 2 more shows without any spring training. And then from here on out, until the end of whenever their season ends, we hope it goes into November, but that's a hope. Then we're gonna have baseball every single episode, so that'll be great.
And we'll have spring training and World Baseball Classic. So we're gonna have full shows. I mean, we're gonna have a lot of stuff to kind of digest and sift through and break down, because going to like the Athletic right now, it's tough. It's like, I've read that article. So
Bags did a long 2-part mailbag that I found very interesting.
Oh,
I
haven't hit that. Did that just come out?
I sent one of the parts to you, but I didn't send the second one.
Oh, criminy.
But there was
I'm behind.
There was a great question about Brian Sabian. Why did Brian Sabian leave? And, how come the Giants couldn't figure out how to keep him? He was a consultant. Why didn't they use him more? And I actually have an answer that's a little bit different from Bags' answer, but, Bags answered it very eloquently. He's a really fantastic writer. And my answer is, I don't know if folks are keeping up with these big media company CEOs. Bob Iger, who was the Disney CEO, he finally left. Bob Chapek succeeded him. Then the pandemic happened, and then they brought Bob Iger back, and now Bob Chapek is out. And it's like the worst thing that could have happened to Bob Chapek when he became the CEO was to have Bob Iger still sniffing around in the building, right? Because he's kind of
pretty
like,
much,
he's the one that was the fantastic CEO. Company really sprouted underneath him, continued success, and finally he has a successor. But he doesn't he's like just around too much, and he's still too much of that fabric. So the second that Chapek is not doing a good job, it's just the whispers are like, oh, who's in the office still? You know who we could bring back? Let's bring back.
You know who hasn't quite really left yet. Article I read too kind of summed it up and said one problem with Bob Iger that everybody seems to kind of overlook is that he is not good at picking his successor.
Yeah.
So this time around, they're hoping, 2 years that they've got him for, that he can really dig in.
I'm taking the over on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 2 years. 2 years in quotation marks. Yes.
By the way, I'm reading a great book on Disney. Gosh, I think it was written in, I want to say 2010. It is called, gosh, what is it called? I'll find the name of it, but
I'd love to read it. So,
it's absolutely fantastic. Just about when it's called Disney War. It's by the author James Stewart. And so James Stewart the book picks up right as Michael Eisner becomes Disney CEO. And so, a lot of this stuff is in the 80s. Like I'm still in the 80s of late 80s, Who Framed Roger Rabbit and all that stuff. So, but Disney's a fascinating company. So just, if you're looking for something about a fun book about a big company like that, I would say yes on the Disney, but I'm still, I'm only 20% into it. So there's still lots of left to go.
We're Disney nuts. And there's a great, 4-part, 5-part documentary on Disney Plus that was on there when they launched. And it takes you from the beginning of Walt's
I need to
journey.
Watch that.
Oh, it is just, I'll watch it again because it was just that good. So, yeah.
So back to the Fan Fest. I believe I went to the very last Fan Fest that they had, because I don't think they've had one in a few years. My friend Stephanie, who is on Twitter as iSteffi, that's her Twitter handle. You've seen her before. She and I have been to a couple together. I went with a couple of other friends back in the day. So I've been to the Fan Fest a good amount of times in, say, the last 5 or 6 years. And so finally they brought it back. And it's if you are a KMBR nut, I think you would really love the Fan Fest, because all of the KMBR hosts are there. And they do interviews with the players and stuff. I remember when I went, it was there was a thing about Boch, because I think it was his last year when before he left. And so they were, it was a whole celebration of Boch and stuff. And I remember going to, there was like a Q&A, and fans could just ask Boch questions. I want to say Brian Murphy did the interview with him, but it was the day that I actually met Alex Pavlovich, Giants beat writer, in person. Now I'd interviewed him before a couple different times. So people who listen to the show probably know Carmen Q, who does the Giants post-game stuff with Cole Kuiper, and I forget the other two people who do it.
She was one of our very first guests.
Right,
back when we first started.
right in the pandemic. She's the one who turned me on to the NPR podcast, the daily one, the daily news one, the 10-minute one or whatever. Yeah. Right in the beginning of the pandemic, I wanted to talk to her because we had just launched this show. But Carmen is friends with Alex, and Alex being the Giants beat writer. So the one thing that the three of us have in common is we are fans of the MTV show, The Challenge. What is The Challenge? The Challenge originally started, they took the alumni from the real world, they paired them up against the alumni from the Road Rules, and they had like Battle of the Network Stars type of athletic events. And it was like a TV show on MTV. Now it has like evolved into this crazy sport of endurance and how far can we push these people, and these people can are puking when they run the final, and TJ Lavin is the host. So we are all, the three of us are fans of that show. So Carmen was like, hey, it's off season, do you want to interview Alex? And I was like, yeah. She's like, well, let's talk about The Challenge. And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, but can I ask him like 2 baseball questions, 3 baseball questions? So we did like 2 of those shows, and I'm talking about 10 years ago. So then at the last FanFest, I finally got to say what's up to him and tell him like, yeah, I'm the guy that Carmen, you and Carmen did the podcast with. And he was like, yeah. And then that was it. But it was just the shortest thing because he's obviously busy during FanFest, covering it and stuff. So, but FanFest is fun. If you go, you want to walk around the ballpark, you can walk onto the field. They have like stuff going on the field that you can walk around, and as long as the weather is good, it's usually a fun time. So if folks go, we want to see your photos. Post them on Twitter, tag us at BSPN shows, or shoot us an email. I have a BSPN email now, gg@bspnmedia.com. So shoot us an email if you have a fun FanFest experience. I think Hot Take Brian might go. I don't know if I'm going to go. I'm thinking about it, but have to trek out to him after I coach the Twins basketball game. So we'll see. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, but it's fun. It's a good time. All right. Some news, actually. One of the pieces of news is the Giants signed a new catcher. Backup, probably, if he makes the squad. Robert Perez, historically great defensively. Had one pretty good offensive season. Not really an offensive guy, but he's now in his mid-30s. He's had a lot of injuries of late. But he was sought after. He was definitely someone who teams were looking to bring on, and the Giants bring him on possibly to back up Joey Bart. What did you think of the signing of Robert Perez?
I like it. He goes by Robert Perez. He goes by Roberto Perez. It's like the director, Robert Rodriguez, who sometimes goes by Roberto. Yeah, and when he's doing like some sort of gnarly horror bloody show, it's Roberto Rodriguez. But when it's more kid friendly and happier, like what is it, Shark Boy and Lava Girl?
Yeah,
that's Robert Perez. So
there you go.
So maybe if we can go with Roberto Perez, we can get more pop out of Roberto's bat. He had one season where he had an OPS plus over 100, and 100 is the average. So we're not getting a bat here. He does put the ball in play. I mean, he's not a strikeout machine. I'm trying to think in his one season, let's see, 248 at bats, 71. Well, he is kind of a strikeout machine. I'll pull that back a little bit. Not a strikeout machine, but he strikes out pretty normal. But he does have a little pop. One season, 119 games in 2019. Only 449 at bats. He had 24 home runs. But he still only had an OPS plus of 99 that season because he only hit 9 doubles. He's not a doubles machine. It's over the fence or dribble a single, lifetime 207 hitter. lifetime OPS of 658. But here's what we're looking at: 2019 and 2020, he was a Gold Glove catcher. And that's what excites me, because when you look at the active roster right now, when you look at the 40-man roster right now, when you look at both of those rosters, you see one catcher's name.
Yep.
And that's Joey Bart. So this is something that they really needed to do. Get Roberto Perez in here. Let him, compete as the backup. I don't think they really have many other options. Ricardo Genovese is in AAA. I don't think he's ready to come up. And again, he's going to be the same type of player as Perez, but Perez is a Gold Glove catcher in Major League Baseball. So if you can get somebody that can save a run in a game, that's probably just as good as driving in a run. So I'm okay with that. If you just got a so-so catcher who hit 230, but his glove was not so great, I probably would not have been as happy with this pickup as I am.
So what about Austin Wynns? Like, I know he's not on the 40-man, but he is on a minor league. I believe they brought him back in a minor league deal. Is that right?
I don't know actually where he currently is.
I think they brought him back on a minor league deal. And then they have the great Blake Sable, who I don't know if people really consider him as a catcher, but he kind of can play a bunch of positions, maybe not greatly, all of them, but he's also on the roster. But yeah, you're right. Now we have a second actual catcher. And so we'll see what happens with him. I would hope that because of his value defensively, but this puts a little bit of pressure on Bart, right? Bart has to hit a little bit better than someone who can't hit at all if he wants to play. So I think he will. I think Bart, like when somebody, I think we were talking about this during the season, but they said, to your eyeballs, Joey Bart is a terrible hitter, but if you average all of the catchers in baseball, like, he's still better than half of them. So
yeah. So he was really coming around as a defensive catcher last year. And now you've got Roberto Perez in camp who can help Joey Bart as well, on the defensive side of things. And you've got some owner with the Giants. What was his name? Buster Posey, who might also be able to help out defensively with Joey Bart too. Now that he's part owner with the Giants, can show up at camp and, kind of throw some things out there. I'm sure Joey Bart and Buster Posey probably still talk to this day, just kind of about, about the catching position and what's expected and how to improve and how to get better over time. I know everybody laughs at me. I'm still high on Joey Bart. You can print that out, stick it on the wall. I'm still high on Joey Bart. I still am expecting at some point a 250 season with maybe 30 home runs. I'm expecting it to click at some point. Maybe I'm just trying to be super optimistic, but a pick that high, I don't want to just write off yet. So I think, again, having Roberto Perez in there to kind of help with the defensive side of things, Joey Bart can then concentrate on hitting a little bit more. And hopefully this coming season is a little bit of a breakout for him. A step forward is all he really needs at this point. His OPS last two seasons were in the low to mid 80s. His OPS plus. So if he can punch that up closer to the 100, I mean, if he can walk away next season with an OPS plus of 100, 99, 101, I'd be ecstatic. I'd say that's a huge step forward, that he is now an average OPS plus hitter, not just catcher, but hitter in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I apologize. I anglicized Roberto Perez's name something fierce there by calling him Robert. I just missed the O when I was reading it.
There you go.
I don't know what happened.
I mean, he may go by Robert Perez. I don't, Who
knows? Let's talk about one other small move that just happened right before we went to record. Joe Ross, the Giants signed Joe Ross to a minor league deal, former first round draft pick. I think going back about 10 or 11 years now for that draft. And so I think he's a Bay Area guy, so they're bringing him in as well. And this is what Farhan does: take some shots at guys who will cost them nothing to see if they will give them, slightly above nothing. We'll see what happens with him. And but yeah, so that was just right as we were about to go on air. That happened as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Any kind of insurance you can get on the pitching staff, that's huge. I mean, like we've talked about so many times, they need like 8 starting pitchers going into the season. That's just the way it is nowadays. So
that's a good segue too, because we're going to hit that. Farhan talked about that today. But before we do, let's talk about what we are drinking. Now, I have a fun one for you. I was actually really excited to do this because this is the weirdest, wackiest drink that I could find. So I'll lay out how this happened, how I got these drinks. I did not purchase them. Crystal had a party on Friday where she invited her colleagues over to have game night. And so, I'm watching the basketball game, and they're, having wine and playing games and having a blast. And all of a sudden, everyone leaves. It was I think they were all gone by like 8:30. So it was an early kind of party. And so I look at like this, there's like a couple of drinks left, and there were like some hard seltzers. And then I was like, oh, what's that? And I look at this can. It is called Loverboy Sparkling Hard Tea.
Oh.
So and it's called at the bottom it says it's kissed with lavender, and lavender is an actual ingredient. Lavender extract is an actual ingredient. So I was like, wow, who makes this? And what I found, did a little bit of research. It's like 2 UK reality stars or something like that are behind Loverboy Sparkling Hard Tea.
So you mean it's not the 80s band Loverboy?
No, it's not.
That's they're not working for the weekend.
I mean I mean, look at this bottle. It looks
that is
kinda,
wow.
Or not
like
bottle, can. So the other thing is that there is no sugar content in the entire thing. The ingredient for where you get the sweetness in Loverboy Sparkling Hard Tea is in monk fruit.
There you go. And that's in Zevia drinks.
Right.
Monk fruit and stevia.
So I'm guessing that's where the caloric intake comes from, because it says 0 sugar, 0 added sugars, but still 90 calories. Now, I understand that some people believe that the calorie in, calorie out is kind of BS, and it is really about your blood sugar and the insulin hit on these certain things. So maybe calories is not a big deal. But if you're going to give me a drink and on the front of it you say no sugar, and then I look at it, it says 90 calories. I look at a Diet Coke and it says no sugar, and I look on the back, it says no calories.
Yeah.
So what's going on? Or maybe 5 calories. So what's going on, Loverboy? Is the monk fruit really where the caloric intake comes from?
No, the caloric intake is from what how your body processes the alcohol. So that's probably,
so the alcohol is where the calories come from.
Right. So at 90 calories, how many ounces is that?
It is 11.5.
Okay, I'm gonna guess at 90 calories, 11.5. You're looking at 4.8 ounces, or 4.8% of alcohol.
It's like 4.2 or something.
Yeah. So now, if it was 110 calories, you'd be looking at like a 5% alcohol drink. So the higher you go up in the alcohol, and that's the same with beer. Beer is the same way. Higher alcohol, and you're going to get more calories, and it's just the way your body processes it.
So you're saying that I should have actually asked for more calories in my Loverboy Long Boy iced tea than less calories.
Exactly. If you want to crawl to bed, you want more calories in your fancy Loverboy drink.
There you go. All right, what are you drinking?
You told me I was going to laugh. You texted me and said, I've got a drink and I'm going to laugh. You're going to laugh at this. And I did. That was funny. I like
yeah, good.
So I went, speaking of calories, uh, I needed a beer today. A rough day, long day at work, lots of snow. High today in our area in Reno was 26 degrees. It was 7 degrees on my way to work this morning. So it's been a chilly day to say the least. So I grabbed myself a Lost Coast peanut butter chocolate milk stout. And
Wow.
it's but it's only 5.6%. So it's not jam packed. And again, with beer, you get the higher alcohol percentage with the higher amount of malts that are used. So it's not really jam packed with malts or anything, but it's sweet. I definitely taste the sweetness. It is a smooth and creamy midnight black stout with hints of roasted peanuts, cocoa, coffee, raisins, and toffee. Easy drinking for both casual fans and aficionados. But yeah, it's very tasty. It's not heavy. I've had some peanut butter stouts that you're like, like the dog when you give him peanut butter.
Yeah.
It's not like this one's definitely not like that. It's not chewy, but it's got a nice hint. And I'm a sucker for anything peanut butter. You give me anything peanut butter, and I will eat it.
There you go. All right, so now let's talk about the conversation that Farhan had with reporters. The story comes from Alex Pavlovich, the aforementioned Alex Pavlovich. We were talking about him. It's not about MTV The Challenge. He is talking about Giants baseball. So he asked, I don't know if he asked or if that was just, with some of the other reporters in the conversation, but it turned to the rotation, and the Giants have a lot of guys. Alex Wood, Logan Webb. They sign Ross Stripling. They sign Sean Manaea. They have coming back from last year. Who's the guy that got hurt?
DeSclafani.
Right? So, they have all these guys, and then they have guys like Junis possibly in the bullpen to be like a long guy. They have guys like Sean Jelly who could possibly be in the mix there as well. So they talked about him, and Farhan is quoted as saying, I think it's really going to be a mix, mentioning like the starting pitching. There may be some situations in which we go to a 6-man rotation for a period of time. The drawback is that you're down to a 7-man pen. But if you have rested starters who are going deep into games and you have guys in the bullpen that can throw multiple innings, that can help mitigate that. I think there will be times we do that. There will be times when we tandem guys and try to use 2 of our starters to get through an entire game and give the rest of the pen a day off. So that's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Using if you do have 6 starters, using 2 in one game and just going like, all right, Logan Webb, you got the ball, you're throwing until you're done, and Alex Wood, you're cleaning it up no matter what. Like so we're saving the entire bullpen, and we can do that because we have the multiple starting pitchers that we have on this roster. I forget the Cobb. They also have Alex Cobb.
Right.
And so what do you think about that? Because a lot of the times last year, it definitely felt like the bullpen was so tired and asked to get outs that maybe weren't there for them.
Yeah, and I think what they did too, which was great, is that they couldn't really go out and they weren't going to overpay for bullpen arms. Yeah, they were kind of in on Kenley Jansen. Where did he end up? Boston, right? Yeah, they were kind of in on another couple of relievers, and then they ended up getting Taylor Rogers. So they've got the Rogers brothers, and they've got Camilo Doval in the back end.
So instead of back to our podcast idea, maybe it's the Taylor and Tyler Rogers podcast instead of Logan Webb.
Yeah, just call it Rogers Deuce.
Yeah, we may have to pitch them that.
There you go. I get them on our network. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
So yeah, so they didn't really, do a huge revamp of the bullpen, and there's a lot of arms that a lot of guys at the end of the season that they kind of took a look at. Let me just, I'm gonna punch up the roster real quick because I don't want to leave anybody out. Um, yeah, so when you look at it, some arms, Scott Alexander, um, who else was in there? And Luke Jackson, another reliever for the Giants that they picked up in free agency. He's coming off of surgery, so it's going to be another maybe month or two into the season. He's ready.
Everyday Brebbia.
Everyday Brebbia. Jacob Junis is now can be like a true long man. Speaking of long man, you've got Sammy Long, Slinging Sammy Long.
Slinging Sammy.
Tyler Rogers, Taylor Rogers, Zapucki, who was really coming around. Cole Waits, another guy who was coming around during the end of the season. So when you've got Alex Wood, Logan Webb, Stripling, Manea, Wood, DeSclafani, and then you've got Kyle Harrison too. It's almost exciting. It's like, hey, are we taking a step back towards getting starting pitchers to go like 6 or 7 innings?
Yeah.
Maybe 8 innings. I mean, are we going to like lengthen guys out because we have more starting pitching?
Yeah.
And that'd be kind of fun too, to see, hey, Logan Webb, he's slated to start today. If he can get 8, cool. If he can only get 5, hey, Alex Cobb is going to come in and he's going to pitch the last 4 innings, and that's going to save the bullpen and rest them up. Yeah, I think this is a step in the right direction because the bullpen was taxed in 2021, which then kind of bled over into 2022. And they threw a lot of innings in both of those seasons combined. So to add more starting pitching arms and be able to kind of mix it up that way. And I know Farhan in the interview said, this isn't a strategy. Hell, it is. It's a strategy. I mean, that's what that strategy is.
What I wonder is, we saw, I think the Rays were the first team to do the opener thing where you start off with the bullpen guy and then you bring in your starter to be the long man.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is Farhan going like, oh, here's the zag to that strategy. We're actually going to have a 6-man rotation, though it's still going to be a 5-man rotation because in one of these games, 2 starters are going to flesh this whole game out. And thus it's still, they're still going to all have the same rest, but that's how that's an interesting thing to do, especially if you have guys that you trust, because it could completely backfire. Like if you don't have a starter you can trust, you're like, okay, Logan's going 6, and then we're closing with DeSclafani these last 3, and then DeSclafani can't get out of the 1 inning, then it screws up your whole thing because then you got to bring the bullpen back in. So it's a fascinating idea, and I'm interested to see how it plays out. So he says, yes, that's something we've heard a lot from our relievers over the last couple of years is there's just a lot of value, and it's kind of intuitive in games where pretty much the entire pen has the day off. If you have a guy who throws 5, then a guy come in behind him and throw the final 4. That's huge. That's huge for the entire bullpen. This isn't a strategy or matchup type of thing as much as it is a load management thing and a way to keep everybody healthy. And like you said, it absolutely sounds like a strategy. And I'm going to give it to Farhan if this is where teams are going. And they're like, oh, look at what the Giants are doing. They're saving their pen every 3 or 4 starts just by, doubling up on the starters in games. We're going to start doing that. And then it goes that other way. And then they're like, yeah, who's doing openers? You guys who do openers, you guys are stupid. This is the way to go.
Well, and that's the thing too, because you've got Alex Wood, right? He's a starter, but he's traditionally had issues third time through the lineup. So if you can get him in the 5th inning, in the 6th inning, and have him finish out a game where especially if you're up like, say it's a 5-1 ball game, right? You're up 5-1. Logan Webb has thrown 106 pitches, couldn't get out of 6, didn't quite have his stuff, walked a couple of batters, walked 3 batters, whatever. And then Alex Wood could come in and go twice through the lineup to close this thing out. Then, hey, that's a fantastic strategy. It blows up in your face if something bad happens and you get to extra innings, and now you've got to start using relievers.
Yeah.
Then you've used 2 starters, and a bunch of relievers. But I think that's going to be, that's going to be the rarity, of course, when something like that happens. But in theory, it's a fantastic strategy, even though Farhan says it's not a strategy, which is bullcrap, because it is a strategy to have a 6-man rotation, but to use it uniquely instead of every 6 days, every day for 6 days in a row, somebody different starts a ball game.
And then there is the elephant in the room who's chomping at the bit to make the big league team. You mentioned him, Kyle Harrison. I imagine that's the dream, right? Is Harrison is able to be a big leaguer sometime this year, and then you it's just your ideas on steroids now, because you have this young guy who's missing bats, and you add him to the mix. So Kyle Harrison is kind of he's kind of the prospect dandy right now. Now he's not in your top 10 of most of these things. We've seen a couple. We saw the one that we talked about last week. I think he was like in the back end of the teens.
Yeah.
Keith Law, he put his prospect list out, and it has a lot of the guys that you're aware of. Gunnar Henderson is number 2. Corbin Carroll from the Diamondbacks is number 1. What's funny is I know a lot of these guys just because of the show, the MLB The Show.
Yeah, exactly. Yes,
because you have your little your cards of these guys. Jackson Chourio, who's 19, is number 3. He's a Brewers player. So all the way down, and you get Diego Cartaya is number 6. We've heard of him. When you get down to number 12, right after Marcelo Mayer from the Boston Red Sox, and right before Andrew Painter from the Philadelphia Phillies, and you have Kyle Harrison at number 12. He was ranked last year on Law's list at 82, so he made a 70-player jump on this list, and he is the first Giants player, of course. Now, if you're wondering about Luciano is in the top, let's see, he sits 21, so he's in the top 21. Last year he was 15, so he's dropped a little bit, and that's because of the injuries that we were talking about last week. But yeah, Kyle Harrison is a little bit of a dandy, and I think the last couple years, like Giants fans and people who follow this stuff, like our friend Roger Munter and a lot of the really good prospect folks on Twitter, we knew Kyle, but I think now a lot of the national folks are finding out about Kyle. What do you think about his rise on these lists?
I think it's awesome. And I've seen a lot of lists too, where he's number 1, the number 1 left-handed pitching prospect in all of the minors. Led all of the minors last year in Ks per 9. I think it's well-deserved. It's I think there was a fantastic article. I'm trying to remember. I want to say it was in The Athletic, probably about a year ago, where they talked about the Giants draft strategy during the pandemic, and it was kind of all in on Kyle Harrison. He was a local guy.
Yeah.
He was easy for the Giants to scout. And they looked at that and they said, you know what, we got to go all in on Kyle Harrison, and they got him. And so when you've got a left-handed prospect, you know how you want to combo those righty to lefty, because when you go into a series against a one-sided heavy lineup, if you could punch them with a righty and then a lefty, and then maybe back with a righty, just go back and forth, that's kind of the way you want to do it. We're old school. I'd love to see him come up. I'd love to see him come out of the gate in April.
Who loses their job if that happens? Who
I don't know. Somebody, but we're talking. This is the 1980s strategy, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Kyle Harrison's really good. Good, punch him in. Roger Craig, punch him in the lineup. Let's go. But yeah, it's not going to happen. So it's probably going to be closer to like June. I'm excited, man. I'm really. It's been a long time since we've had a prospect take this big of a jump in all of the rankings, where even the Giants brass, everybody in the Giants brass is saying This is he's going to make a splash in spring training. You wait and see. I mean, remember what Logan Webb did a couple of years ago in spring training, where we're like, oh my gosh, he had something like 22 strikeouts and 1 walk or something like that, and we were sitting there going, oh, this is fantastic. So if the Giants can get a homegrown lefty righty 1-2 punch starting in June of this year, that's exciting for Giants and Giants fans.
Yeah, he's going to be a fun one to follow. If I know us, we're going to be looking at box scores every time he pitches.
Oh yeah,
that's where Rogers' website comes into play. His Substack,
right.
it becomes very valuable as you follow. I'm almost more interested in Luciano at this point, just because of his issues last year, and I just want to see him bounce back. And so, Casey Schmidt is also very high up on this list. And, the talk is that, and this is also in Baggerly's mailbag, David Villar, who still has options, it sounds like the Giants really want him to go out and win that third base competition. But then you have Casey Schmidt, who's like kind of riding the coattails there, and is what they say is he's the best defensive third baseman, maybe even defensive infielder, as far as the talent in their prospects. So he's kind of coming up. Where does if you're high on VR and you got this prospect chomping, I wonder if it's to maybe see if he's got any trade value, or maybe he just hits and hits and hits, and you just find a spot for him because he can hit. I think that's your optimistic view there with him.
Yeah, I think so. And you've got JD Davis, who could play third, so you've got him as kind of an option over there as well. And you've also got Wilmer Flores, but we're not going to go there. We're not going to go there for Wilmer.
I think
Wilmer's going to see a lot of.
Wilmer's going to be on this team until he's like 50 years old. I just feel
I'm fine with that.
He's going to be able to hit. He'll still be able to hit. He'll come in against the left-handed pitcher and he'll just rake a line drive. He won't be able to run or defend at that point, but he just feels like a guy who's going to be here forever.
It takes like a certain type of player with a certain panache for the clutch hits for me to be like, okay, that's a Giant forever. I'm always going to remember that player. And Wilmer is just one of those guys. And then the walk-up song, the Friends walk-up song.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't go wrong.
All right, 3 quick things before we get out of here. The Giants promotional schedule came out. Alex Pavlovich tweeted about it today. On the schedule for the promos, Logan Webb and Jock Peterson bobbleheads, Kruk and Kipe tiki mugs.
I'm in on that, man. I'm not gonna be able to make it to the ballpark, but I'm gonna have to get that from
how do we got to get those. We got to find people who are going and who will get them for us.
Yeah.
A Lucille Splash Hits counter bobblehead. This is a fun one. They will celebrate the 1993 team on August 12th. So that is, if you grew up when we grew up, that's like one of the favorite teams of all time there for us. Yeah. And then there's a Star Wars Funko Pop Day. And then Pavlovich adds whatever that means. Come on, what a Star Wars Funko Pop is.
Look at here's a Star Wars Funko Pop for you. The Mandalorian, the child, and Mando without a helmet too. He's got no helmet.
Yeah, you can see his face. Yeah, I have my Ray one in the closet.
Yeah. I only own 2 Funko Pops. I've got that one, and then I've got the great Eddie Van Halen.
There you go.
You got to have an Eddie Van Halen Funko.
The 2 that I have are Marcus Burnett and Mike Lowry from Bad Boys, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith.
Yes,
I got
that's
those.
awesome.
I got the Ray one. All right.
Awesome.
We talked about this last week. We're going to be following the WBC very closely. You can see by my hat, Team USA. I still need to find some hats of the other countries, though, to have struck out on.
Those so hard to find, man.
And the ones that I can find, I'm not even sure if they're real, and I'm not sure if they're the current hats. They could be like the one from 5 years ago, and I'm like, which is kind of cool too, though.
Yeah, I don't think they change them. Honestly, I think the hats pretty much remain the same. The Mexico hat with the cool looking M with the 3 different colors.
Yeah.
Though that I think that's still the same. The Puerto Rico hat is still the same. I think they're all still the same. I don't think they changed the hats.
Yeah, I'm looking for a Mexico hat, a Japan hat, though I don't know if you and your wife do this, but we're doing frugal February coming up, so the
We
fun
do that every
budget
month.
so
At least we tried to.
the fun budget goes away for February, so I got to figure this
Go.
out. I'll be able to purchase them in March if I can't find them very soon. Okay, so my WBC update. So there's a great column in The Athletic. I think it's a monthly column, and it's like the world of baseball. I forget the writer's name. I didn't write it down, unfortunately. But he wrote this last week. He said he wrote, Japan will sport a stacked roster that also includes Masataka Yoshida, the 29-year-old outfielder who signed with the Red Sox, and Munetaka Murakami, the 22-year-old Tokyo Yakult Swallows slugger who broke Sadahara O's single-season home run record last year with 56. Jeez. So they're going to have some bashers on Team Japan here. Murakami's new 3-year deal with the Swallows will allow him to move to the major leagues in 2025. So he's going to come to the bigs when he's 25 years old, which is not how it happens for a lot of the Japanese players. They kind of come, at the tail end of their 20s or in their early 30s. And he's already stated his preference for a landing spot. Ideally, I'd like to play for a West Coast team, Murakami said earlier this month. But then he hurt my feelings when he said, but I'm also interested in the New York Yankees.
No, get out of here.
Okay.
Damn you, Hideki Matsui.
Okay, but here
he ruined it for us.
Yeah, that's 100% right. But here's my real worry. Does wherever Ohtani goes, is that a little bit of like what Matsui was for the Yankees, like you just said? If Ohtani signs with the Dodgers, now all of a sudden, do these really great Japanese players want to come to LA? I'm like, no, we can't have the pipeline. The best Japanese players be pipelined to the Dodgers.
Well, and we're also battling with Seattle every time a Japanese player decides to put his hat in the ring. Then all of a sudden we're like, oh no, Seattle, Ichiro has such a big following there. And so you're battling with, the Yankees, the Mariners, and don't add the dirty Dodgers into it, man. Come
on. I also wondered, there was a Murakami, Masanori Murakami, who played for the Giants in '64. Right. I wonder if there's any relation. Murakami is probably like a casual.
I think it's
name.
A very common last name. Yeah, because wasn't that the first Japanese-born player to play in the majors? Right.
Yeah. He was a reliever, debuting at age 20 in 1964.
See, we've got that.
Yeah,
we've got that. Come to us. We have tradition. Don't
Absolutely.
Go to the Dodgers. Dodgers have no tradition.
Absolutely. We could probably get an answer to that. I'll be interested to see if there's any lineage. Maybe there is. And
yeah.
Okay. So last thing, and I think most people, if they're not listening to the full thing, maybe they've already turned the podcast off. So I can add this. This is just selfish stuff for you and I. Today, MLB The Show announced a new cover athlete, Jazz Chisholm, who we're all a fan of. I like the way that he plays. He's really a fun baseball player. And you and I were talking about, I was like, I think it's going to be Julio Rodriguez. Like, he's like the most fun young guy who you could market the game around. I'm sure he's in the running for a future game. But what'd you think about Jazz? He wasn't one I expected, just because, he's not one of the 10 best players in baseball.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he was an all-star last year. He's only been in the league for 3 years, and only one season has he played more than 60 games, and that was in 2021. But so he toured. There's a really cool video. I think it was last year, where he toured San Diego studios, and it's like a nice little 5 to 10 minute video, and they actually sit him down and interview him. He's one of the first players to get oh, I can't remember what it's called, but it's called the player card.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, so when you're playing online, if you're playing somebody who has a player card, it is actually that player.
Wow.
And Jazz Chisholm was the first one to get that. So when you're playing against somebody and they have a Jazz Chisholm card, that's him. That's actually who you're playing against. And the interview was really cool. And he was so geeked to
Yeah.
be there. You could tell he had played this game for a very long time, like us, and he was like, "This is the like." I mean, he was like starstruck being at the San Diego
That's
studios.
awesome.
So I think it's very well deserving. And I commented on something Jarrett Seidler said today. You know, yeah, he's not the guy who like led in war or
Yeah.
anything else, but he's flashy and he's a fun guy. And then I commented on the tweet and I said, when you think of the words "the show," Jazz Chisholm is the show. I mean,
Dude has the best name in baseball too.
He's got the best name. I love jazz myself, the music genre. So as soon as I saw his name years ago, I was like, well, that's cool. I mean, the guy's got a first name is Jazz. He's from the Bahamas.
Yeah.
And he's flashy and he's fun and he has a good time. So yeah, that's who you want on the cover. You don't want, sorry, Mike Trout. I mean, I love Mike Trout, but I mean, it's Mike Trout.
Yeah.
He's just there.
That's Team USA captain Mike Trout there for you.
I'm sorry, Mike Trout, but I mean, he's an exciting and fun player, but he's not Jazz Chisholm, who's like way out there and just fun to watch. So
yeah, I think he's gonna have a lot of fun with this. Buddy of the show, Jeremy Feinstone said, what happens if he's traded mid-season? Because he was in trade rumors last year, right? So you're gonna have the first. I imagine he's not the first show cover athlete to get traded during the season, but during the season in which he's on the cover. So
yeah, exactly.
Okay, we're done here for this week. I think I hit everything on my list, man. It was a long rundown too, because there was nothing really juicy, but there's a lot of like little things, and so yeah,
it was a gumbo. It was a Thompson to Clark gumbo, is what it was.
Absolutely, you got a little bit of everything on this show. So next week we will be in February, which means closer to spring training, and Crystal and I are going to figure out if I can make that WBC game. Team USA versus Great Britain in second week of March. See if I can get JJ and get my dad, and we'll go out to Phoenix to watch that game. I'm trying to figure that out this week because can't do it in February because it's frugal February. So I got to do it now, or it's not happening. I got 2 days to figure this out.
No, today's almost over. You got 1 day, man.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is it.
So, I need to figure that out now. Okay, so we'll be back next week. For Brad, I am Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.
Peace.